Anil Dash, what's your new project?
I'm the director of a new independent nonprofit called Expert Labs, and our mission is to help policymakers make better decisions by letting them crowdsource questions that they have while making policy decisions. And what that means more specifically is we hope to incubate the creation of new social web technologies that they can put to use in getting those questions answered.
How did this come about?
There's a long, convoluted history. The shortest version is that we are part of AAAS, which is the American Association for the Advancement of Sciences, and we are very generously funded by a grant from the MacArthur Foundation. The genesis of what became Expert Labs starts a few years back with Beth Novak's project, Peer to Patent, which was really about crowdsourcing answers for how we could find prior art and examples to improve the quality of software patents. From there, Beth worked with a number of people that she collaborates with in the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House and elsewhere around a concept called the Policy Innovation Network. There were a lot of amazing contributors, including yourself, to that dialogue about what ways that people could crowdsource and contribute, and how technology can help that happen. Eventually, long story, slightly less long, was that we landed at AAAS. I was brought on board as director, and we rebooted with the name Expert Labs with the idea that we could discuss our mission in something that was a little more of an entrepreneurial model to hopefully catch the attention of people in Silicon Valley and in the tech community as much as in the policy community.
And so Expert Labs is going to provide, it's going to be a mechanism for getting advice and answers to federal agencies and others?
Absolutely. I think, in the broadest sense, we hope the tools we make are useful to anybody that wants to get questions answered on the web. But the immediate mission is we look at various federal agencies, the White House and other parts of the executive branch, and we think there's a real opportunity for moving past the model of today, when you get outside expert opinions, you might get a half dozen or a dozen people in a room for an hour or two, maybe for one or two meetings, and that's the outside input process. If we can instead look at that as what we all do on Facebook and Twitter today, of floating a question to a couple hundred of our closest friends or a couple thousand of our contacts, and then being able to take that and filter through the responses. Imagine that at a national scale. There's tremendous potential.
And clearly there will have to be ways of managing the many, many, many answers you may get to some questions.
Yeah. There will literally be too much to know, right? So I think we're going to be confronting the questions at a fundamental level, not just a technological level, but a social level of how do we define expertise and how do we define authority? And I think one of the reasons I like the name Expert Labs for the initiative is it really gets to the core of the idea that there are experts out there among us, and they may not be accredited through the traditional means of earning a degree in a certain topic or being a member of a certain organization, but that we can expose that expertise collaboratively. And so first thing I think is we need to cast a wide net. I think we need to learn that lesson that we can get a very, very broad number of responses to a question. If the White House has millions of followers on Twitter and wants to get a question answered and gets hundreds of thousands of replies, that's an opportunity, not a problem. But then how do we narrow that down to a couple thousand good responses? Well, we can use the technologies that are out there to say, well, which of these people are identified as registered lobbyists? Which of these people are members of an accredited educational institution? Which people have answered questions like this in the past before and expressed an interest over time? Which people are voted up by the other members of the community? And by making those filters visible, making it easier for people to create new ones and share them, we can author different views of that information. We can provide a really valuable way for people to discover information from each other, as well as providing answers to us policymakers.
So you said the first thing that we have to do is cast a wide net, which implies that you are going to find the undiscovered experts who may have very specific knowledge because they're out in the world not doing whatever they're doing.
That's right.
And find them. And then towards the end of that answer, you suggested that there might be value in the expertise and knowledge that is developed by these experts that you've identified in talking with one another. Do you see this also, expert labs, also as a way in which you enable the interchanges and conversation by which knowledge sometimes grows?
Yeah, I mean, I do think collaboration on knowledge is a mission that we have. I don't know that it's the primary one. I think it's something we want to enable, but will not be the explicit goal. You know, I'm trying to pick a single priority that we're focusing on, and that is simply, you know, at least for this first year, going to be a platform for getting questions answered. I do think by our very social nature, innately, humans are going to collaborate on getting a question answered if they can. I look at some of the communities that do a fantastic job of this online, and somebody will come up with a great answer initially, and somebody else will make it even better. That is something I think we can really tap into. If we set up the right reward and incentive structures, people are going to want to collaborate just by their own nature.
There are for different sorts of questions, you would expect different types of tools.
Right.
Do you have a sense now of the sorts of questions that you're going to build your tool set for?
It's still early, and we are going to be soliciting proposals and suggestions about that. But I think, candidly, if we have to be bad at a kind of question, I want us to be bad at survey questions. I don't think we need new polling platforms, and that's not going to be a good use of our tools. Questions that will be good for us is questions where there's a definitive answer that's hard to find, and it's a matter of finding the right person that's connected to it. We will be good at questions where we want to have an overview of a couple of different approaches to solving a problem, where there might be published research that's out there that is in a limited community that hasn't been shared yet. I think one thing that's very, very important, to the people I've talked to in this administration, as well as people I've talked to that are, adamantly opposed to this administration, is that there are great solutions locally in communities all over, the U.S., all over the world, and that if we can help surface good local solutions to big problems that can be reproduced elsewhere, that'll be very valuable. So questions that have a very finite scope and domain, and that can be answered, as opposed to demanding large groups of people to shout opinions, I think are going to do very well. And what that lends itself to, I think, is when a direction is chosen for policy, and what opportunity exists is to refine that direction based on past successes or teachable moments in the past, then we will be good at helping ferret those out.
When this idea was initially broached in its initial form by the White House, as I understood it, they went to the AAAS, which is the Association of Scientists, because it had such a vast reserve of scientific experts. The sorts of examples that you're giving seem to be more crowdsourced. It's the millions of Twitter followers and so forth.
I actually explicitly want to get questions that are focused on being well aligned with the interests of scientists, and that can be well answered by a body of scientists. I actually think there are a lot of public policy questions where the hand and the influence of working scientists is going to be extremely valuable. And so I'm deliberately using broader language for inclusiveness about who can respond, but I think it's very likely we'll have a number of questions that are going to be the primary answers are going to come from the scientific community. And what I should be clear about is we're never going to constrain who can respond to a question. We want everybody that has the desire to respond to do so. But there are a lot of questions that naturally are going to do better with answers from the scientific community, and that is where being part of AAAS gives us this unfair advantage that I'm really happy to take to make use of.
And it assumes that in your filtering of those sorts of questions, you will have some mechanism perhaps for giving more weight to the scientists who you know. If you're looking for scientists,
I think actually the filtering systems we're going to use are going to let you list affiliations in a number of different ways. And will we be extra conscientious to make sure that AAAS members are listed? Absolutely. We're part of that organization, and that is our obligation to do so. It's also, frankly, an incredible resource. We'd be foolish not to take advantage of it. But whatever tools there are for listing yourself as a member of AAAS, we would certainly want to apply if you are, a member of any professional organization, or if you're a member of, the National Academy of Sciences, if you're IEEE, if you are, a Shriner. Like, I think those are all things that you might want to identify yourself with that are going to show your expertise in an area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.